before the Shadow Paladin. Open, swiftly.
The nation with the name Sanctuary. The Kingdom of United Sanctuary. Almost all of its territory is protected by the spirits of light, and this nation is known for its small amount of spirits of darkness.
Oh? Wrong again? In the name of the Shadow Paladin, I hereby order you. Open.
But this nation is not without its darkness. In the great forests of Falia, where trees could touch the clouds, there are a few areas where light is forbidden to infiltrate.
Ugh. Wrong again? Too bad I only have one chance left.
These areas are protected by darkness, and its residents seek protection from the land. For example, witches, black knights, and dark elves, they all study or work away from the ostensible world of light.
In the name of the Shadow Paladin.
In this deep forest, the high-spirited voice of a boy echoed in front of a massive building. He was not talking to anyone, but a massive gate, which was quite creepy.
Oh, my tongue hurts.
Perhaps because of nervousness, he bit his tongue. The boy's face turned red in a moment, but the fact that the surroundings became darkness made his face turn pale. A slowly moving rock was flung and blocked his sight, and the fear of death struck him. He saw his short life flash before his eyes, and he could not even scream.
I'm dying.
He could not but close his eyes and waited for his death. But the expected impact did not come. That was because...
In the name of Shadow Paladin.
The boy opened his eyes and saw the massive rock, as well as the young man who easily stopped the rock with only one hand. The young man was so tall that the boy needed to raise his head. Reflecting blonde hair spread from the young man's pitch-black clothes, and the young man's left arm was an impossibility of humans. An aberration like one of a dragon's.
I order you. Open. Demon World Castle. Eingang.
Password confirmed. Stop attack.
The young man's sentence finished, and the Demon World Castle Eingang reverted from attack form to its original form, and then the closed gates were opened.
Nice. You'd better remember it if you don't want to die.
The young man spoke to the boy, Knees, who dropped down behind him with only one sentence. His voice brought Knees back to reality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luard.
When he was trying to stand up and say thanks, his savior had gone.
Mr. Luard is so cool. One day I'll use drag shift as awesome as his.
The recovered Knees didn't notice. The entrance, opened by Luard, was slowly closing.
Here I come.
Later, until another member of the nightly group order arrived, Knees had to dodge Eingang's iron fists, but that was another story. Luard returned to his laboratory deep inside Eingang and immersed himself in the study as he did every day. The topic was, of course, drag shift, the secret arts they drag wizards sought. Luard sung the incantations, and his left arm in front of him emitted light and changed into the form of a dragon's front limb. The light spread to his right elbow, and turned that which it touched into a dragon form, but the transformation stopped there. Luard kept singing the incantations for several minutes, but no progress of transformation occurred. He finally stopped and returned the composition of his arm to its original state. Numerous books were piled up everywhere in the laboratory. He smacked his lips unpleasantly and laid on the books like lying on a bed, spreading his limbs.
Still not workable, huh?
Shadow Paladin is the shadowy knightly order that works behind the scenes for the Sanctuary, and Luard is one of the order's members. He had been a swordsman who worked hard in refining skills of swordsmanship, but for some reason he abandoned swordsmanship and became a mage.
There have been 2 months of no progress.
Luard achieved little in swordsmanship, but he has shown outstanding talents since he became a mage. Usually, the basics of drag shift took years and decades to get a grip on, but he mastered it in just a few months. At least, none has broken his record.
Why can't I do that?
Those who used to tease him as a mediocre swordsman now praised him as a genius. He had never been extolled to such an extent, but what he knew was not the joy of a successful person.
If this goes on,
A successful person seeks another success. More successes, no failures. He used to live in bivouac shelters, but he is now permitted to use the first-class laboratory in the Demon World Castle. He could be described as a successful person.
I want to use the laboratory. I can't afford to lose my current position to reach the apex of drag shift. And
what pushed Luard was only one emotion. That was...
seek that one. The jerk who killed Big Bro. Find them and tear them into pieces.
The bottomless rage. A fury called vengefulness. The space inside Demon World Castle Einge is vast, and now it is used not as a stronghold, but the research center of drag wizards. There are 2 first-class laboratories, 7 second-class laboratories, and a total of 26 laboratories of third-class and below. Including warehouses and reference rooms, there should be over 50 rooms. The owner of this Demon World Castle was the lady who occupied a first-class laboratory, Morfessa.
Knees, how many times have you made the same mistake?
Sorry, Lady Morfessa.
Smoke rose from a censer with dragon scales carvings, and Morfessa asked the question more towards the smoke, not the boy. Knees kneeled before her feet, with his head stuck to the ground.
Stop sticking your head in the ground. That makes the ground dirty.
As you wish.
Morfessa owns a first-class laboratory like Luard does, but her laboratory was tidied up, and there was not a book on the ground.
Although I have changed the password many times to prevent infiltration from intruders, I don't think the password I said is too hard to remember.
Certainly.
Then why are you lowering your head before me?
That's...
Knees answered with not words, but tears. Seeing this, Morfessa could not but sigh.
Keep in mind, this is the last time I'm giving you entry authorization.
Thank you very much. Then I'm leaving now.
Knees' face changed into a full smile and bid farewell. Morfessa watched his back and said,
And finally, to a boy who speaks pompously to become strong every day, I'll give a word of advice.
Knees wanted to ask, but as soon as he saw Morfessa's face, he closed his mouth.
If you're truly a man, stop weeping and sobbing on every occasion.
Sorry?
Scolded, Knees ran back to his room, although he tripped and fell many times on his way. Morfessa wanted to close the door, but she stopped. No one was in front of her, but as her voice resounded, a man's aura could be sensed from the door.
Eavesdropping? I didn't expect you to have such cheap hobbies.
Facing Luard, who stopped hiding his aura, Morfessa spoke aggressively in a capricious manner. Luard scratched his head crudely and unpleasantly stared at her with a frown.
Your loud voice is meant to be heard by the others.
This cannot be the reason for you to hide here and play lurk and sneak, right?
That's just because I'm in a bad mood. And want to have a chat with you.
If that's the case, come in. I heard you smack your lips. Hey, you're lucky I'm in a good mood. And I'm fine with hearing an immature junior's trouble.
Luard raised his eyebrows when he heard Morfessa's words, and this didn't escape Morfessa's eyes.
A right guess of mine.
That's it? No progress? Oh, great senior, do you have a solution?
Your control of emotions is far from enough, but you've suppressed your anger so far. That's worth a reward.
That's some way of saying thanks.
The veteran witch found Luard's efforts of suppressing his emotions funny and smirked. Luard was enraged by Morfessa for not going into the topic for so long, and at the moment his clenching teeth made a louder sound, a sharp thing was pointed at his forehead. As usual, Luard stopped the thing with 2 fingers. Although he was anxious, he pretended to be calm. Keeping his alertness towards the witch, he carefully moved the thing in front of his eyes. That was a card. Much bigger than a tarot card.
What trickery is this?
Go there.
Morfessa interrupted Luard. Of course, Luard was not going to accept it without question. But just as he could ask a question, Morfessa's familiar, blue-scaled dragon, stood in Luard's way. Morfessa ignored Luard's action and began reading the thick books on her desk. Luard judged that this was the end of the chat, so he left the room and examined the card again.
This is a map?
Compared to other areas of the sanctuary, spirits of light are weakened in Cephalia. Therefore, even landscape inspectors of the capital could not grasp the details of Cephalia's terrain. And now, a delicate map had been drawn on the card. Those inspectors would be attracted should they see the card, but
It's too small to read.
seems that Luard needs a magnifying glass. That day, Luard headed off to the place marked on the map, the depths of the forest after sunset. All directions were filled with darkness.
Next is North 68, East 91. Almost there.
But Luard was not lost in the darkness. This is because before he had headed off, he had calculated his stride length, distance scale on the map, and from the positions of the obstacles, he predicted the distance between his positions and the destination and had set the correct directions and number of steps.
It's irritating, but this is thanks to the accuracy of Morfessa's map.
He had no way to learn when and how Morfessa surveyed and drew the map, but the map was extraordinarily accurate. Even spots difficult to walk across, like shrubs and rubberies, were recorded with detail.
Is this the destination?
Now Luard was at the exact spot marked on the map, but as he looked around, he found nothing special. Everything was shrouded in the darkness of night.
It can't be a trick of that vile witch.
Luard thought this was not the case in the very beginning, but as his suspicion grew in his mind, his suppressed anger towards Morfessa came to the surface.
Blasted! Why did I listen to that woman's nonsense? Even if I've been driven into a corner. Dang!
His rage had reached the peak, and his left arm transformed on drag shift, and he was going to vent his anger by unleashing his mana to shatter the ground.
Calm down, young mage.
He suddenly heard a voice. That voice sounded like a young man's low voice, but the tone was deep, just like
Like an old man.
Luard thought of that in a moment.
Who are you?
Although Luard heard the voice, he saw no one. He couldn't sense where the voice was coming from, nor the aura of the speaker. Maintaining his drag shift form, he moved his sight and concentrated his mind.
Anyway, I can't find him in this darkness with bare eyes. Then,
Luard closed his eyes, focusing on detecting the ebb and flow of mana, and finally, he sensed the slight aura of something.
the position is just behind me?
After learning the speaker's position, he changed his objective to force the speaker to show up. This time, he focused his mind at one spot. He stealthily imbued his left arm with mana to prevent his opponent from noticing it. Then,
There you are!
he unleashed a back cut with enormous mana to the rear. But it was stopped.
What?
His left arm in dragon form, double the size than normal, was stopped by a lean arm of which almost no muscle could be seen. The arm belonged to a mysterious man in a black cloak, with white long hair and an eyeball on his forehead.
I didn't expect you to find my position so quickly. Seems you have promising potential that I haven't seen for ages.
Who are you?
I am Ildana, a mage of ancient times.
Ildona? That's the same name of the accomplice of the Abyss Dragon who died in the Civil War several centuries ago.
You made no mistake. I am that accomplice.
As if reading Luard's thoughts, Ildana answered him without the slightest change in facial expression. On the other side, Luard's face was filled with depression.
Be at ease. I didn't use telepathy. I just predicted your thoughts from your facial expressions.
The problem in emotion control was pointed out once again. Luard was uneasy about that. He crudely drew his suppressed arm back and moved away from Ildana.
Then, are you an enemy?
And what do you think about that?
Don't use a question to answer my question.
Before his sentence ended, Luard charged towards Ildana at a formidable speed. By bursting mana at his feet, he closed the distance in one breath. This is a common move of body-enhancing type magic. Simple, yet powerful. But
Easy to see through.
this time, Ildana grasped not Luard's arm, but the latter's face, and banged Luard's head on the ground. When he awakened, the first thing Luard saw was a faint light. He found that it was the only light source of this space.
You've woken up.
Oh, it's you.
As his facial muscles stretched in anger, waves of pain struck him. He couldn't see his face without a mirror, but he could guess that his face was injured. And another pain came from the back of his head. That pain made him recall that the back of his head was hit, knocking him out.
My apologies. Your strength exceeded my expectations. So, I can't control my power well.
A man more powerful than me says he can't control his power? Are you treating me like a moron? Who's going to forgive you?
That is... But even so, I must apologize. Apology means one admits his own fault for someone else. And it can be called rite of chastisement.
Again, Luard was seen through. He could not but make a bitter face. He blamed his incompetence.
Then, let me reintroduce myself. Once more, I am Ildana, the man who tests you young drag wizards.
Why are you responsible? You don't look like a drag wizard.
Although it was deliberately deleted from the records of Shadow Paladin, Dragheart was indeed developed from Ogre Shift, one of my studies from the past.
Ogre Shift. That is the secret art created by Eldona in the past, the forbidden art that had driven the realm of men into terror, to abandon one's fragile body and change it into a strong ogre's.
So is it... That is why you look so skinny, yet you are strong.
Ogre Shift is different from Dragheart. There is no spell restoration. So, my body cannot return towards its original form.
Let's go back to the main topic.
Eldona informed Luard once again.
My task is to give you suitable tests as to bring out the power of drag wizards.
Then, what is that test?
So as to know what test is for you, you must live here for a period of time.
That's all?
Yes, just stay here. Live as you normally do. If you need an environment of research, I can prepare it for you at some extent.
As a place of living, the space has no problems except for its weak light source. Reference books of first-class laboratory level were piled up on the walls. The facilities were substantial, and after all, there was a lot of space.
I get it, though I don't know how you'll decide the test for me, if that's just living here. I'll follow your words.
A right judgment. Then, I'm leaving.
Leaving? You are going to observe my living?
Even though I'm not here, I can see very well. I can see what you're doing.
After saying that, Eldona disappeared in the darkness. If one observed carefully, they would notice that there are no doors in the room, as if the space itself was separated by Eldona's power. With such power, setting observation magic in the room is just too simple.
Though I still don't get it all, I get a laboratory with all the facilities, and that's a deal. Perhaps I can really achieve some progress.
Although he was going to be imprisoned here, Luard's face only showed optimism.
I don't really need the test to come. In such an environment full of goodies, I can get more or less some results.
And so, his life in the enclosed space began. When Eldona showed up once more, Luard felt like 1 year had passed.
It's been a long time. I see that you're well.
It's you.
Same as before, Eldona showed up without his aura being detectable. Luard responded while lying on his back indolently.
Your form tells me you haven't yet received your results you wanted.
Yeah, it's as you said. I've wasted 1 year of time.
Luard's eyes in dark circles showed no furor as they did, and looked full of self-denial. Ironically, he looked less emotionally unstable than before, and he didn't even talk back.
I have made some progress.
Huh?
The direction of your test has been decided.
Eldona spoke something significant in a poker face, making Luard ignore those words in the very beginning.
Then what's the test about?
Broaden your horizons.
Horizons.
In the first place, magic is born from creative thoughts. And magic only reaches the completion after so many failures. It can even become a piece of infinite forms.
And what's the relationship between that and broadening one's horizons?
Your thoughts are too rigid. You know nothing, caught in the birdcage of laboratories, relying on data left by predecessors.
Hearing that, Luard's eyes were filled with furor.
What's wrong with relying on data? What's wrong with walking the path of those who have succeeded before? If there's a shortcut towards success, then it's more effective to use the past ways.
Data has no completion, an uncompleted final product. But not only with magic. Nothing is completed.
Not giving Luard the chance to talk back, Eldona continued.
Completion in data is only completion to the recorder's eyes. If you give up on self-thinking and stop at not surpassing, at the incomplete final product, what could you achieve?
That is...
Your world is too narrow. Not just talking about the world, you've yet to see the nation itself clearly.
Those calm words extinguished Luard's anger. After calming down, he finally understood the content and the meaning of the test.
To broaden my horizons, that is.
To travel around the world.
Oh. By expanding my world, I can re-examine magic in different angles. That is the meaning.
That is correct.
Ildana closed his 2 eyes and raised his hand, and the room they had been in disappeared like a heat haze. Same as when and where they came, it was the forest in the darkness of night.
1 year. I've spent quite a lot of time.
I forgot to tell you. The room you was in was detached, isolated from this area. The concept of time doesn't even exist here.
Huh?
That is to say, only 7 minutes have passed since leaving the world.
Say that in the first place.
Sorry.
Luard was relaxed by the surprising truth told by Ildana and laughed.
I'm not going to forgive you. You've beaten me once.
Looking at Luard with his hand on the back of his head, Ildana provoked him on purpose.
Then what do you want?
Luard raised his head with a smile and stared at Ildana.
When my drag shift reaches perfection, I'll throw a punch into your face for sure. Be prepared until then.
I'm looking forward to it.
Ildana closed his 3rd eye and smiled for the first time since they had met. He disappeared after saying his words. This time, Luard wasn't surprised and turned back. His smile was fading away from his face.
Yeah, I'll throw a punch at you for sure. But...
Now, anger came to the surface.
that is, after I kill that faceless jerk who killed Big Bro.
Only a single night has passed, and your facial expressions have become really great.
Thanks to your advice.
When the laboratory's door was just open, Morfessa's voice could be heard.
Hey, you learned that, but you still show everything on your face.
You're right. I'm going to sleep then.
Luard talked in a wry smile.
I'm leaving tomorrow.
In the first place, he had intended to leave sooner or later to hunt down the enemy who had killed his big bro. But he thought that wasn't of Morfessa's concern, so he skipped that part and continued.
I'm only taking the necessary goods. I'll leave the rest to you.
That's the test given to you, isn't it?
I'm going to travel around the world.
Are you sure you're okay? You haven't left the forest for several years, you know.
I've at least checked the current situations of the world.
No, I'm asking from a smaller perspective. Simply put, about your common sense.
I said I'm okay.
But a hikikomori going to travel around the world, the difficulty is a bit too...
I'm going to sleep.
The wind blown from the closing door made her curly blonde hair waver. Morfessa looked at the closed door, smiled, and sighed slightly, and returned to her room. Anyway, she seemed happy seeing the growth of her junior. Luard didn't sleep well and woke up early. He felt the dragon's factors residing in his body, urging him to go quickly. Just as he had said to Morfessa the day before, he carried little luggage and headed to the castle gate.
In the name of Shadow Paladin, I order you, open Demon World Castle. Eingang.
Password confirmed. Gate opening.
After confirming the password, the massive castle gate opened with a thundering sound. He told only Morfessa about his journey, so there were no other members of the order to see him off.
I'm going to miss this password for some time. It's a troublesome system, but I'm feeling a bit lonely without it.
Before the castle gate fully opened, Luard began his steps.
Luard. Godspeed.
Hearing the mindless Einge say goodbye to him, Luard was shocked and turned back. Standing atop Einge was a witch in a long cloak. He couldn't see her face, but he expected a smile that teases others as little fools, as she always does.
Really? Even in this situation?
Luard sighed greatly, waving his hand to bid farewell, and started his journey. The man who turns his body into a dragon, Luard. His pure inquisitiveness towards the magic of his own, and his negative furor of revenge. His immature mind is going to be shaken up by many kinds of emotions. A dragon who has flown away from the nest, his true story has just begun.